This podcast was recorded on Bundjalung country. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hello and welcome back to the Defend the Wild podcast. We took quite the hiatus, but we're back. In this episode, I catch up with Shark Girl Madison, who I am a massive fan of. Her work is amazing over in Indonesia, saving sharks from being killed. And the way she does this is by working with the very people who kill the shark. She is challenging perceptions of enemies and turning them into her greatest friends and allies. And she's doing amazing work because of it. So yeah, hope you enjoy the episode and glad to be back. And we're on. Amazing. I did actually see that you have your podcast coming back. It was, you had your last episode in like 2022, hey?
Yeah, and then I just abandoned it, and then I thought I may as well bring it back from the dead. I'm so excited.
Yay, I'm keen. I'm so keen. Ready for it. I'm sure you have so many
Yes.
good stories.
It's just been such a good outlet for my rants. You know, I used to have to type them up and put them on socials, and now I just get to verbalize them. So it's good. The first one's pretty good. I honestly just drank a glass of wine and just started answering things that people had written into me on social media. So let's jump on for the wild ride that's going to be. So yeah.
I can't wait. That's epic. I love that. What a way to do it. Anyway, that was a funny way to start the podcast, but welcome, Madison Stewart, legend, Shark Girl. So great to have you. I'm such a fan.
I'm getting such a big head already, and we barely started. Love it.
No, good. You deserve it. I mean, I particularly love the way that I feel like you're really pioneering the space of changing the way that we look at what we're told to be our enemy, I suppose, and actually have turned people into your greatest ally that many would probably think should be your greatest enemy. So I'm so keen to hear more about your journey with that, and just, yeah, it's so epic. Love
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I guess I'm keen to know, I know you grew up in Australia, whereabouts, and sort of how did you get into the ocean?
For sure. So, first of all, also likewise a fan of what you do. I just feel like so much of the information you've been putting out keeps me connected to issues in Australia, which I tend to drift away from. So, it's been really nice to see, like, I've learnt so much from your page, which I love. So, thanks for everything you do as well.
Thank you.
I was actually born in Wollongong, and then I know, in the Gong. So my parents were like building a sailboat in Wollongong, and my mum was at university. And then I grew up with my parents for like my grandparents actually for 2 years while they finished building that boat, and then we got on the sailboat. So I spent like a couple years on the sailboat as an infant, and then
That's so cool.
I know it was a pretty, like, you know, there's absolutely no hope for me after that. That just set in stone that I was going to grow up a eccentric weirdo. But yeah, then moved to the Gold Coast after that, which is where I went to school and stuff. But I traveled so much as a kid, which is where a lot of my fascination for the ocean came from. And then yeah, now I kind of live overseas, but venture back to Australia quite often. And I've just always, thankfully, because of my parents, had such a connection with the ocean throughout my entire life. So I guess I was going to do something with the ocean no matter what.
That's crazy. What a way to grow up. I love it. And I guess, how did you become Shark Girl? Like, I mean, I feel like you're widely known as the Shark Girl. How did it happen?
I am, because, okay, so I spent a little bit of my early teens growing up in Byron Bay, good old Byron Bay. Yeah. And I had returned from a trip in the Bahamas to Tiger Beach, and I was 15 years old, and there were these like wild pictures of me with tiger sharks. And then I was also doing some advocating against shark fisheries in the Great Barrier Reef at the same time. And like, you know, Byron Bay is just so into like environmental conservation and everything cool people are doing. So the local newspaper wanted to put like a picture of me on the front and write a story about everything I was doing. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm so stoked. And I was friends with someone at the paper, and they put like a title on the paper that was Shark Girl. And I remember just joking with them and being like, haha, that's so funny. I love it. Please just don't use that, whatever you do. anything other than Shark Girl. I hate being called Shark Girl. And they were like, okay. And then like the next freaking day it came out with like Shark Girl. And
Shark Girl.
And I was like, okay. And then everyone, all my friends, everyone at the dive shop, hey Shark Girl, hey Shark Girl. And I was like, I'm just not getting away from this. And then my first documentary came out when I was like 20 and it was called Shark Girl. So I just cannot get away from it.
Lean into
but I love it. Yeah,
Lean
whatever.
Into it.
It's easy to remember.
It actually reminds me of this time I did an interview on Channel 10 that like a child had been bitten on Gari or chased on Gari or something had happened with dingoes, and they asked me to talk. And I remember it was like a live cross and I was about to go live, camera goes on, and you can see like the screen up in the corner where like what it looks like on live television, and they just had like this little box underneath me, like Alex Livingstone, dingo expert, and you actually see my face go like on live TV.
They will just like, I feel like society doesn't know how to categorize people like us, so they will just like make up titles and names, and like it must be nice being a PhD scientist because then you can at least have like a name. But for us, they're like, what? I always get that question, like, what do I put your name in on the screen? I'm just like, just put filmmaker, all right? Just make something up.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Actually, so funny. There's my partner in particular and their sister would always be like, wait, so what do you do for work? And my partner and I talk about it a lot now, and they're like, yeah, when we first met, I just had no idea what you did for like 2 years. I was like, oh, okay. Advocacy, it's just like a bit of everything, I guess. Yeah. Absolutely. You said there was some like epic images of you with tiger sharks. Just obviously swimming with sharks is like second nature to you, but for most people it would be like, wow, insane. Can you tell me about some of your early experiences with sharks? Like, how do you go from not swimming with sharks to being like, it's just normal for me to be getting up and close with like great whites and tiger sharks?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? So I had the most interesting childhood. Like I said, my dad was like paranoid that I was going to get hit by a car riding a bicycle. So he never let me like ride a bicycle. I was 19 years old before I got onto a bicycle and learnt how to ride a bicycle. Wow. And it was an absolute shit show. I know. So I grew up not being able to do like the most random normal things, but then I was allowed to do things like swim with sharks. And that's just the mentality that my fantastic father had. He had so much faith in the natural world and in apex predators like sharks and absolutely none in humans. And like statistically, you got to have his back. Like, yeah, he kind of knew what he was doing.
Statistically, I still
yes. Yeah. I haven't really met any psychotic sharks, but I've met a lot of psychotic humans since then. So it was great. I grew up. Dad knew, you know, and it was so normalized for me to just be 12 years old and surrounded by sharks. I used to, when I was really little, when we were diving on the Great Barrier Reef, we would do night dives, and I used to breathe really quickly and heavily in my dive equipment because the sharks would pick up on my increased heart rate and like buzz me on the night dive. So it was like playing games with sharks as a kid. Yeah, it was the greatest. And then, you know, at 15 years old, I was hand feeding reef sharks in the Bahamas and swimming with tiger sharks. And then 18 years old, I had my first out of the cage experience with a great white. Like I had a very interesting childhood. It was very cool. And
so cool.
It's just normalized. I think I mean, you have dingoes for Christ's sakes, and most people would be like terrified of that. And because I guess if it's something you're raised doing or you're used to, you kind of see it as normal, and you see the other things like riding a bicycle as terrifying. So
that's true. So true. I mean, I see photos of you with these massive sharks and I'm just like, you know what? I want to do that one day. Like, I just think it would be so fun and so scary at the same time. Although I'm sure you don't think it's scary.
I'm way more cautious now. Now I'm like way more, I think I've seen too much, and I'm just getting to that, I'm getting to that age because, you know, I was born in the 1900s, the 90s. A little fucking shithead friend of mine called it the 1900s the other day, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. But
it's so true.
I'm just getting like a bit more sensible. So I definitely like, it's so funny.
It happens when you get older.
Right? Yeah. And
yeah,
now
I'm about to hit 30.
Oh, It's coming. Nah, it's great. It's the greatest years ever. But you do, like, something switches in your brain and you're like, oh, I'm actually not bulletproof. I should probably be careful of that big fucking shark that, you know. So I'm a little more cautious than I used to be. Still not the average person level, but things have changed.
A healthy level of caution is always good, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Being a woman in conservation myself, I know that there's been like unique challenges like to face in the conservation field. Like some of the things for me is like maybe not being taken as seriously as male counterparts, or I'm curious, like, are there unique challenges as a woman in the shark conservation field that you feel like you've faced and sort of overcome?
Ooh, this is a question. This is a question. Oh my God, how much time we got.
Great, I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone. And I want to do a whole episode on this on my podcast because it's so interesting. So I'll keep it short and I'll say my 2 points on this. My 2 major points is I was raised by a man, like grew up with my dad, and I was never raised to believe that I was any less than anyone else because I was a female, and that stuck with me. So I've probably experienced a lot of it, but I do not notice it, and I see it as weakness. So when men are dismissive or they are insulting, I see it as, champ, you're just a little insecure, you know, big feelings, buddy. So like I see it, but I don't think anything of it and it doesn't affect me. And it also, like, I have male colleagues that used to tell me, you'll never be able to do anything unless you go to school, and like they went to school and they're not working in their professions, and I'm in Indonesia tagging tiger sharks. So, you know, I'm not going to rub it in their face, but I'm also going to recognize that some of the shit you've said is just dumb. And then the second thing, and I don't know if this is something that you've experienced, but this is super interesting, is I get it a lot from other women. So hear me out. Sorry to piss off the women, but a lot of the time people will write to me and be like, it's so amazing seeing like a woman in the field doing what you do, and like because you're a woman and blah, blah, blah. And that's beautiful and it comes with the right intention. But as soon as I get those messages, I'm like, I never saw being a woman as a disadvantage. So why are you telling me it's amazing as a woman? I don't know any men doing what I'm doing in Indonesia. I don't know any men taking, you know, the images that I'm taking of dead sharks to show the world and raising the awareness that I'm raising. Like, not to toot my own horn, but this is something that I'm able to do with my feminine traits, like working with shark fishermen and being a little bit emotionally manipulative and understanding things and being empathetic. Like, those are female traits, and that's why I'm successful. So let's not say it's amazing seeing a woman doing what you're doing. Let's just say it's amazing.
It is amazing. It's so amazing. I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think that's like really, really good insight into that. And like a good thought about like language we use when we're talking to people as well in the field. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, out of curiosity, when you get it, does it ever stop you from doing what you're doing, or does it ever affect you negatively to the point where it gets to you?
No.
Yeah. We can recognize it, but...
Yeah, definitely recognize it. I've obviously faced my challenges, certainly, in the conservation field, but I think you've just got that, and I feel like you do as well, just that fire in you to just keep going. And yeah, it's never enough to stop you in your tracks, of course. Yeah. You just mentioned taking photos of sharks in Indonesia. So it's kind of a good segue into like the key threats that sharks are facing. Now, I know that's like probably obviously the main threat in Indonesia, but like on a sort of global scale, can you just like talk to me about some of the main threats that sharks are facing?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is obviously the shark fin trade. And this is what we know probably more than anything, is that shark fins are kind of like pangolin scales and rhino horns. They're this delicacy in Chinese culture, and therefore they are hunted around the world specifically for their fins. There's also a huge trade of shark meat. There's so many different things affecting sharks, but the biggest threat to sharks is the fact that humans don't care about them as much as they do other animals, and their perception in the media and the way they're portrayed to us and the way that people feel about them is probably their biggest downfall, because we don't pay as much attention to them as we do other animals.
Yeah, and I feel like you know, I mean, maybe sharks particularly, but it's like a real thing with apex predators, I feel, you know, that people are frightened of them, and they don't have this ability to sort of like engage with them in a curious way and maybe grow this adoration for them that people that work in the field like you and I have the opportunity to do. So they just have that fear. I mean, it's so sad because apex predators are just so integral to all of our ecosystems. I love how you're sort of changing the way people view sharks as well, I think, too. I'd love to hear more about your work in Indonesia. Like, how did it start and how did it get to the point now where you're employing shark fishermen in the tourism industry and you can like tangibly say, this is how many sharks that we are like making sure are not fucking dead on a boat, like in the water, because we are working with people who directly are employed in that industry and are happy to have other employment.
Yeah, so something I love about it is actual numbers and actual visuals of the change we can make. So Project Hiu is something I started like 5, 6, 7 years ago now. And it kind of came about by accident. I was with a documentary called Blue the Film, which came out in cinemas in Australia, and they wanted to film me at this shark market in Indonesia. And before that, I had heard of Indonesia's shark trade, but I had never seen it. I'd never been to Indonesia. I was avoiding it because I was like, I'm not going to support an economy of a country that is the world's largest shark fishing nation. And now I'm definitely supporting it. So yeah. It's funny the things you say and what happens. Yeah. So that was my first exposure to the market. And it was very confronting and it was very interesting. And I think after that, I wanted to do something about it. But I also didn't receive any hostility whatsoever from the fishermen there. And that was something that I was like, all right, you know, I had like the little feeling of maybe we could work with them. I didn't realize that it was going to be such a partnership and that they were amazing people. That's all stuff that I had to learn. But to be completely honest with you, I was also suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time, and my life in the ocean was getting complicated. I could not enter the water calmly without feeling huge levels of anxiety or having panic attacks. So my career diving with sharks was at a standstill, and I still wanted to help and I still wanted to do something. And I think that's why I stuck with Project Hiu. Yeah, I don't always like obviously go into like dishing out all my trauma vomit whenever I explain the project. So people have probably heard like the initial, oh, this is why I did it. But the truth of why I did it is I was traumatized. I was looking for a way to help sharks on land because I could no longer do it from the water. And look how well it worked out, because now I'm just a little less traumatized, but I have all these shark fisherman friends. So it's been great.
Yeah. I mean, so interesting though as well, because like I guess that people would think that going to the markets, is that like, yeah, would be quite traumatizing. Like,
right.
I mean, yeah, like, and I've sort of worked in the investigative field and like been in those places where you're sort of like face to face in the belly of the beast of like what wildlife are facing. Like, how do you kind of deal with that? Has that had like a traumatic impact? And, you know, how do you kind of keep your mental health in a good place, I suppose? Or do you?
Such a good question. Oh,
yeah.
Oh shit, look, you can be funny or you can be mentally stable, but you can't be both.
Have both.
Some people just want it all. We shouldn't have laughed so hard at that. But yes, it's I get that question so much, usually from people like in my life, and they're like, oh, like, Pip, aren't you traumatized when you go to the market and you see all that? Like, isn't that weighing down on you? And it's like, no, this is where I can make a difference. Like, it drives me. And I also am a big fan of, like, as you know, in the work you do as well, you have to put your emotions on the back burner and see the bigger picture in those moments. And that's how you can create change. And it's definitely like, it was so liberating for me to be able to go there and do that and document that and know the fishermen and do something about it, because like I said, that was like my way to help after I couldn't just be in the water. So it doesn't take a huge toll on me. It actually makes me feel more inspired.
Yeah, totally. It's great when you can like take something that I think a lot of people would find confronting and potentially super traumatizing and turn it into motivation. I think particularly when you're working in a space like you are, where like you've obviously got this super horrific thing here that you're bearing witness to, but you're also using it to create solutions that like you can tangibly say, we saved this number of sharks. Like, and that's a rare thing, I would say, in conservation. Like, we can talk about estimating things that we've done and, you know, all of that, but actually having a tangible number to say, this is how many sharks we've saved because we've taken this shark boat out of the mix is like insane. I wonder, like, how many shark boats and shark fishermen have you got like under your employment right now?
So right now we have 12 boats contracted with us, which is more than 60 shark fishermen. Yeah, it's incredible. And you're so right in the sense that like sometimes I go to the market and I'll see a big catch and that'll be the next boat I want to hire. So we look at their catches to decide who we're going to hire. And that also just makes it such a good feeling when you do hire them because you're like, all those dead sharks I saw last month, you know, that's not happening this month because I'm with this boat. And then even though that's a temporary thing, we also started figuring out how to make that a long-term thing by sponsoring the kids of a lot of the captains we work with. So we're also trying to get their children out of shark fishing for the future and get them into something else by putting them through university and giving them the skills to work elsewhere. So it's long-term and it's short-term, and hiring the boats is more of a now thing. But as a project, we also look at like long-term what we can do. And it's super wonderful. We have saved roughly more than 4,000 sharks since we started because I keep track of how many boats each month we hire, and we have them on a rotation. We don't hire 12 boats every month, but we'll hire up to 4 each month or less and keep track of how many fishing trips we prevent.
Ah, oh, that's so cool. Like, so cool to hear about sponsoring kids to go to university and like have those opportunities opened up to them. And like to think that, you know, like you were saying when you were younger, sort of having that attitude of like, oh, I'm not going there and supporting an economy that, you know, drives this industry, which I totally get because I would have been exactly the same when I was younger about other issues in conservation. And now you've gotten older and you're like, hey, I want to actually work with this community on the ground to like change the root cause of this. It must be so rewarding. I guess what kind of like lessons have you learned in terms of, you know, the way in which we do conservation, how important it is to work with grassroots communities and like Indigenous communities?
Oh my goodness. I think it's so important. I think if I could tell like aspirational conservationists anything, it's that the biggest solution probably lies within the people that are the problem. Because, yeah, like, I mean, the shark fishermen, for example, are the ones doing all the damage, killing all the sharks, but they're also the ones that know the most about the sharks. They're the ones that are suffering the most from going to fish them. They are the ones with the knowledge of the surrounding ocean, and they are the absolute best people to employ to take people into that ocean. Like it just, there's so many things about it that make sense. And there's so many communities and issues out there that we can look at with, you know, hey, you guys need to be doing that differently, or this is environmentally devastating, but we can never know what it's like to be in those communities because we grew up with privilege. Like conservation is about having enough privilege to go and look at something and be like, I want to fix this, instead of trying to fix your inner world. Like your inner world has to be comfortable for you to look outside. So I think a recognition of how much privilege we have as conservationists is super important. And then learning the culture and just taking a step back and trying to change things from the inside looking out is, in my opinion, always going to be the best solution. It doesn't work everywhere, I guess, but in most cases, it's going to, like, the answer's going to lay within the people that are the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's, yeah, so inspirational, and like so many people could take so much from that in the conservation field. And I really do feel like you're pioneering this new space, and like it's just going to continue to like grow outwards, not only within your own initiative, but I think within other conservation initiatives as well. Like for the initiative, like how do you see it growing into the future? Oh, have I got a dingo?
Oh my gosh.
She said she started and my
Yes.
partner was like, no, stop.
Oh, I just heard it. That is so cool. Guys, she's got literal dingoes howling in the background of this podcast. That is the coolest thing ever. So cool.
Five dingoes downstairs.
So Australian. Oh my God.
Yeah. We were taking them on a walk the other day and just down the bottom of the property. And my partner's like, dingo. And there was a wild dingo just like running up the other side of the property because it's dingo breeding season. So they're all on the move. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally.
Wow. I need
Yeah.
to explain to all my American friends that that is not normal to have pet dingoes and that it's not normal and this is really cool.
They are work, you know. I was actually thinking to myself before the podcast, especially when we're talking about the dingoes via email, I'm like, I wonder like if you could, you know, ethically have rescued sharks and help them in that way. I wonder how many you would have.
I'd have borderline, it'd be borderline like Tiger King vibes because I would just start unethically collecting sharks to just keep in a moat around my house if I could. Yeah, it would border on
my
unethical
gosh.
real quick.
Okay. Like lucky you can't then. It's great. It's all
Lucky I
good.
can't. Yes, yes.
So in terms of the initiative, like how do you see it growing into the future? Obviously, you're hiring fishermen and boats, getting them out of the mix. You're sponsoring kids in the community, which is amazing. Like you're doing research, I've also seen as well. Tell me about that. How does that sort of fit into the mix as well?
The research, so yeah, we were the first people to tag tiger sharks in Indonesia. It's a difficult process. It's also something that's not easy to do because where are the sharks? We don't know, but the fishermen know. So the relationship we had with the fishermen made it possible for us to deploy 10 tags on 8 tiger sharks and so far get back some incredible data, which we think we've identified an area of significance to them, which we need to find out more about so that we can better protect it. A huge reason, like there's all these like fancy scientific reasons behind it, but a huge reason I wanted to do it is because I wanted to figure out where the sharks are and when, and the boats that fish at that time in that area. And if there is a congregation for a significant reason, such as breeding or pupping, then maybe we could just focus our efforts on hiring all the boats in those few months instead of spreading it out over the year. So we're trying to work with limited resources and make the most impact. And in regards to like what I see in the future, I hope other people copy this and do it in their area that they know and love and try this form of conservation. I hope that when the fishermen I'm working with now retire, their kids have a job elsewhere and they don't need to inherit the boat, and we can maybe buy the boats off them and turn them into cool dive sites. And I hope that just some of the kids that we are exposing to the outside world, to tourism, to sharks, kind of grow up with that love for the ocean and that relevance of how important it is, and perhaps careers in tourism and preserving their surrounding environment. And most of all, if everything was to fall apart tomorrow and the project would fail, I would just hope that we've made it a little bit harder for people to exploit fishermen to get shark fins, saved a couple sharks, and put a good message about how to approach conservation in the world. So I'm kind of like, I live on the mentality of if it all crumbles tomorrow, I'm fucking stoked with what we've done. Like, I don't think too far into the future.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really good way to be, like, because it's just rolling in such an amazing way. So perhaps that's the best way to tackle it. And I so resonate with what you were saying about, you know, the solution is probably in the people who are like the problem. And even talking about how the shark fishermen know the most about the sharks, or a lot about the sharks, I really strongly resonate with that. I have a really good friend that it has been a dogger, you know, like a dingo trapper, and he knows so much about dingoes. And it's so interesting. I remember we were away and we were sort of in the early days of knowing each other, sitting around a campfire, and I was talking to him about all the reasons why it's, you know, epic to keep dingoes in the environment. They keep native herbivore numbers down and reduce pressure on the vegetation. They will predate on feral animals, often eradicating some species, and then other ones they just sort of keep, you know, at a lower density. And as I'm sort of talking about all of these things, he's also like thinking, I've spent all this time in the bush and I've actually seen this firsthand, and that's kind of how we've gotten onto this level of like agreeing that dingoes are really important in the environment, and we also need to have different tools for farmers to protect their livestock from dingoes, because that's essentially what is driving lethal control in the first place, is the fact that farmers don't want their livestock being predated on by dingoes. So how do we stop that in a non-lethal way? And I also think people who have always sorry, Edna's talking downstairs. Yeah, I think the people that have, you know, worked in that space for so long, like they know how dingoes move through the landscape. They know where to find them. They know how to find them. They're pretty skilled at that. And, you know, they're not easy animals to find. I can definitely see people that have worked in that industry upskilling or, you know, adding to their skill set to know how to help farmers in non-lethal ways as well, you know. And I mean, maybe it's a bit ambitious, but I hope that's something we see in the future with dingoes. So, yeah, I mean, obviously quite different, but I really resonate with what you're saying.
It's different, but not at all, because it's like everyone in conservation is going to have to deal with this, and it's a really difficult thing to deal with, because you never want to befriend the people killing the thing that you love, but you have to do something. You got to work with them, you got to compromise with them, and you have to see the bigger picture, and it's so hard. But like, doors just started opening when I began making connections within fishing communities, even here in the USA. Like, I am really good friends with some horrific shark fishermen, but what I learned from that and what I'm able to do with that is far more than if I just bought into my emotions of hating them. And it's a challenging thing. Like, I don't think anyone should assume that they can just do it right away. Sometimes I feel like Dexter, the like serial killer, pretending that he's not a serial killer. Like, not in the sense that I'm a serial killer, but I have to like pretend in these situations that someone's like, oh yeah, I love shark, I love eating flake, and I'm just like sitting there trying not to picture murdering them, you know? Like, you just gotta put on a face at first, but then eventually you just learn that everyone is a human too, and they're just raised a little bit different to you, and yeah,
and they look at it a little bit differently. But you're so right. Like, the benefit of getting to know those people and actually understanding where they're coming from and trying to have compassion for their perspective, despite the fact that your perspective is obviously wildly different. There's so much power in that, because, you know, even just as you're saying, having those relationships, even if they're not leading to, you know, taking their boats off the water or whatever it may be, like, you might be learning such valuable things about certain things in the industry so that you can do that, or so that you can create other initiatives that are going to save sharks or save dingoes, you know.
Totally. And yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, but you do it starts to pay off eventually when you start achieving things. So yeah, I think it's also just like such a relief, because having the weight of the world on your shoulders, which anyone that's listening that is involved in conservation or even has like a diet specific to having care for animals, you know, like, that is the weight of the world on your shoulders. That is a lot to carry. And if you can make one less enemy while you're doing what you're doing, it's going to be easier on you as well. Like, go easy on yourself.
That's so true. It's so true, because I do think that I've also, you know, when I was younger, like, felt so angry about certain things that would happen in the world, and like looking at people as like the enemy or the bad guy or the evil in the world. And when I could like reframe the way that I looked at people, like, you're so right, it takes a weight off your shoulders. Like, it's probably not putting a weight on their shoulders at all. They're probably not thinking about you, you know, but you're just like, look at this evil stuff going on in the world. It's just, yeah, it is a weight off your shoulders. Absolutely. In terms of the project in Indonesia, I'm curious to know, like, how many tourists are you sort of getting through the year? And if people want to come on your trips, like, what are you offering? Like, I know you have some internships. I know you have like week-long trips, day trips. Like, tell me about what you offer.
I wish I had the exact statistic, but we had some like ridiculous amount of tourists last year come on a day trip, which was fantastic. So we do offer trips every single day of the week except Friday, because that's their religious day off. And these trips involve rocking up to our store in Lombok, Indonesia, and then we drive you to where the boats are. We meet them, get on the boats. We go to 2 different snorkel spots. We see baby reef sharks at one of them, we see beautiful reef at the other, and we hang out with shark fishermen all day, and then we bring you back just before sunset. So That
So awesome.
is like, it's so cool. And it's the main income for our boats. Like 100% of everything you're paying to come on these trips is going back into the boats. And then we supplement what's left with like merch and donations. So those experiences, I think people love them because they're doing something cool in the ocean, but they're doing it with a purpose. And then we have
Yeah.
internships as well. So if you're coming to intern with us, you're probably wanting to actually work in the project and you will be put to work. Like you'll be running those day trips, you'll be helping us train new boats, you'll be coming to the market with me and manager Madison, the other Madison. And we also have
Double threat.
double threat. Yeah. We have week-long trips, and those are my favorite because I run them and I actually get to connect with people and they spend enough time to really get to know the fishermen. And in those, I actually take people to the market to see the sharks and we go to the island where the fishermen live and meet the families. So if you're really, really passionate about it, the week trips is where it's at because it's such a cool experience and you befriend the shark fishermen and you like I have people all the time that come back in 1 year or 2 year after their week-long trip and they do a day trip and the fishermen remember them and they're so excited to see them again. Yeah, and then like my two board members of my charity were on week-long trips, so like everybody gets involved by doing the trip first and meeting everyone.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I've actually been eyeing off a week-long trip for a number of years now. I'm really keen to do one at some stage, so it'll happen. It'll happen soon. I'm always just like,
There's one
oh,
coming up.
yes. Oh, I would really love to. It's so cool. And you're in the US at the moment. Like, are you sort of you'll travel between the US, Indonesia, and Australia? Is that kind of the life
Yeah,
for
pretty
you at the
much.
moment? Yeah.
Pretty much. I'm never somewhere for too long. I go back and forth a lot in between all three, Australia, US, and Indo.
Yeah, cool. And you're doing a lot of Sharky stuff in the US as well.
As much as I can. Most of what I do here is behind the computer trying to get things going for the project, but also get to do like fun stuff with sharks and some work, a lot of work here because a lot of productions and film work and shark stuff and yeah.
Yeah. Any exciting shark films coming up that you can give us some teaser into or
I just
all
did
under
a
wraps right
really
now?
the only thing I mention is I just did a really cool music video for a DJ involving a lot of sharks. And it was so cool. It was
Yes.
such a trippy experience because yeah, I mean the whole thing came out way cooler than we thought because we had it's so complicated, but we somehow managed to have a DJ table surrounded by sharks. So that was cool.
That
So
is
random
so
stuff like
cool.
that. Yeah,
Can't wait
lots
to
of fun.
see. Yeah, really
Yeah.
looking forward to that. I'm curious to know, like, what role do you feel like social media and storytelling, like, obviously going from you talking about film, has played in you advocating for sharks and also getting the project up and running and getting people over there involved.
I think it's played a huge part. I think the biggest thing has always been my TV work. So documentaries are always the biggest. Nothing is going to beat documentaries for getting the word out and getting people actually passionate and involved. Social media has been fantastic for raising awareness, donations, getting people to come visit the project. And at the same time, it is now turning into a space that values kind of the I don't want to say abuse, but probably the exploitation of wildlife more than the conservation of wildlife. So if you're going to go viral for something involving a shark, it's probably not conservation based. So it's
Yeah.
getting worse. It's getting harder to like put out a good message on social media these days, but it's definitely been a huge foundation of what we've done up to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming an increasing issue here. Actually, we work really closely with a group that has been advocating for like increased penalties for people sort of just like messing with wildlife here. Sorry, this is me on a tangent, but with crocodiles especially up north, it's been a real thing that because of the sort of social media buzz that people get from videos of them just messing with wildlife, there's been a massive spike, it seems, or maybe just like an increase in accessibility of cameras and social media and stuff like that. But yeah, it is unfortunate that is
Yeah, I'm
such an
familiar
issue.
with that group and the work they're doing, which is so important. But it's so insane that we need a group to teach people that you shouldn't be going up and antagonizing crocodiles for a video. But it's like, it's the
Yeah.
same in the shark world, you know? Like some of the shit that goes viral now and gives people a platform is the exact opposite of the people that should have a platform. But you got to
Yeah.
take the good with the bad with socials. This is actually what my first podcast episode is about, is just me ranting about how social media has screwed sharks. But it is so very true when it comes to wildlife.
Can you tell me, I mean, I don't want to wreck your podcast, but can you tell me a bit more on your thoughts on that? As in just like how social, because obviously like Jaws, we all know Jaws and like the impact that that's had.
Yeah.
And other, I suppose, shark films where they're the bad guy. But what about social media? Like, what have you seen socials do to sharks?
Well, Jaws was horrific, but I also know a good chunk of fantastic shark researchers that became shark researchers because of Jaws. However, I don't know anyone that's seen a viral shark reel of someone doing something stupid with a big shark and thought, I'm going to grow up and study to save these animals, because it doesn't look cool in that video. What looks cool in that video is putting yourself in the water with a dangerous animal and acting like it's not dangerous, or acting like you're in control of the situation. So I think that social media is incredibly damaging in the sense that it is normalizing things that shouldn't be normalized. It's giving attention to the wrong kinds of things. It's giving everyone a platform to be an expert, which is really difficult. I mean, I'm super grateful for my platform, but I'm also like not a leading authority on shark science. And yet people will come to me with science questions, and I'm like, please go ask a scientist, because that's not me. So it's an interesting space for sure. I mean, we're just seeing now like what happens when you give people the opportunity to reach lots of people by doing crazy stuff, aren't we? So we'll see how it goes.
See how it goes. And
See how it goes.
excited to listen to your podcast, which I think is coming out on May 15. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Great little plug there. So I'll be listening.
Thank you.
I'll be tuning in. All right.
It's going to be
got-
like nowhere near as cool as this episode. It's just going to be me ranting. So
I love it. No, I'm ready for it. Everyone needs a good rant, especially with a wine on a Friday night. Is that? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You know.
Yeah. All right, I've got like a few like fun little questions for you, I guess. But like before I start that, do you have anything else like on a more serious note that you feel like you want to get across here?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because like I've been away for so long, but Australia was where I started my conservation journey. And with all the work that you do, like, do you think when it comes to wildlife and everyone's perception of wildlife, do you think Australia is doing a good job to protect wildlife, or do you think we're doing the opposite?
It's really sad because like as you would know, we just had an election and you know, we've got a biodiversity crisis happening here in Australia, and it wasn't really an election issue. You know, the climate was certainly an election issue, and then you had cost of living crisis and all these kinds of things, which we were talking about, you know, privilege and how being a conservationist and being in the conservation space is a privilege, that you have enough privilege to look outside of yourself and say, I want to fix this. So I also understand from that perspective that people are just trying to like survive at the moment. You know, like I think people are just trying to buy their groceries and pay their rent and do all these things. Like I believe that Australia has the capacity to really care and protect wildlife. I just feel like we have all these issues sort of standing in people's way to even put their mind in that space right now. What I will say though, I think, you know, it is exciting to see a lot of young people coming up into the conservation space and like really, you know, putting their voice forward. I think that's always really exciting to see. But more than anything, I think there's an increase happening, definitely not as rapid as I think it should be, but an increase happening in terms of First Nations people leading the push to protect culturally significant animals and wildlife, and really looking at conservation in this sort of like holistic way, rather than just like, you know, looking at one species as one species and that's just, we just want to protect them because we want to protect them, but like looking at all the things that that animal has an impact on or touches and how they interact with their environment. So, I mean, to answer your question, it's hard to say, you know, because you also are in the conservation bubble. I think that we have a long way to go. I think that we we just need to keep getting behind First Nations people and supporting First Nations people and collaborating with them, which I'm sure you agree with, to support their ambitions for country and for animals, because that it lines up with conservation. It lines up with ecological values. So I think, you know, if I had a message for anyone in the conservation field, it's like, if you're not working alongside traditional owners and you're not supporting the ambitions of traditional owners, like how might your work be able to like link in with them and support that kind of work? Because that is a holistic approach, I think, to conservation. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. I mean, it was sad to not see it be an election issue, but I think I can see why. I think we have a long way to go in terms of like getting people engaged with wildlife again.
We have such an incredible wilderness. Like it's what makes Australia. I just said I wanted to say great, but I don't want to be like make Australia great again because we all know where that goes. But we do need to make Australia great again. But
we do. Were you getting the text messages? By the way, no, sorry, I'm cutting you off. Like, were you getting text messages from Clive Palmer?
No, my Australian SIM card is not in my phone. So,
great.
Yeah, I didn't even vote because I've been overseas and I didn't get my postal vote in time. So I'm just going to get a fine and I'm just going to pay it because I'd rather do that.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I know, I'll be more responsible next time. I usually have like my postal vote ready, but it's a shame because we have incredible wildlife, and I think it's like you said, it's not on our list of priorities and it needs to be. And like there's such a divide between people and sharks there, and it's sad, but slowly but surely, hopefully, I mean, usually we'll realize we need to protect it when it's too late. So hopefully just before then.
Yeah, I think on the shark front, you know, like obviously I would say I'm a bit more involved in like the dingo and crocodile space, but I do see things pop up a lot about shark nets and drumlines, and I think there's been this sort of consistent push to get rid of them. You know, again, I just think that a holistic approach to these issues is so important, and like seeing that community building around the issue is really exciting. So hopefully shark nets and drumlines will be a thing of the past soon, because they're just a really ridiculous thing.
Yeah, well, thanks to Envoy, the film Envoy, there's now awareness around it that there never was before. So that's the first step, you know, get people aware, then get them angry.
Yeah. Okay. Small question round. What's your favorite snack when you're on a dive mission?
Oh my gosh, this is the hardest question out of all the questions you've asked me this entire podcast. I feel like like anything with peanut butter. Like I'm pretty basic white girl. Peanut butter and apple, peanut butter and white bread. Like just like a whole jar of peanut butter. I'll eat that shit straight. Like I don't know, it's just so good when you've been diving and you're like exhausted. Just peanut butter.
Yeah, keep the energy up. Okay, that's great. What is your favorite spot to dive?
I have to say Julian Rocks in Byron Bay, because I just had so many I grew up diving there and I have so many incredible encounters there, and you just see so much incredible stuff there, and it has such beautiful like ties to Indigenous culture, and it's just such a cool place.
Love that. Amazing. Okay, I feel like maybe this will be really hard, but actually maybe it's super easy. What's your favorite shark species?
You know, it changes every now and then. And it has been tiger shark for like the last 5 years, but I'm thinking of changing it to the basking shark. I know, because I'm just like a little bit obsessed with basking sharks, and I saw my first one last year and it was insane. Like they're just like massive, they're so big, and they're just like kind of ugly, and I just feel like they need extra love. So it's between the tiger shark and the basking shark right now.
Sorry, you're like, I need to give them some extra love because they're ugly.
They need it. Yeah.
So ugly, so they're like, cute.
we've all at one point in our life given the ugly guy a chance, you know, like you just need to do that with the basking sharks.
Has it paid off?
Never.
Amazing. Okay, so if people want to support your work, want to follow your work, where can they do it? How can they do it?
Honestly, let's start with the easiest is social media. You follow me and the Project Hiu, simple name for the page, and from there you can join a trip, buy merch, learn more. Honestly, just following that page and just like seeing what's happening in Indonesia is a huge part of it. You don't have to drop money, you don't have to drop time. You can just be aware and help spread that awareness, and that makes a difference. And yeah, I guess watch some of the documentaries that I've been in and support us any way you can, really. Yeah, I'd love to see more people joining us on trips in Indonesia. And also, I guess, go listen to my podcast. And I kind of, I love this episode. I want to find a way to like merge it, like collaborate on our podcast so we can both have this episode on. I don't know. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
That'd be cool. But don't assume you need to be a shark person to help sharks. Everyone can help sharks. So yeah, I'll post all sorts of ways to do that.
I love that. I love your message. I love your work. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Say hi to all your dingoes from me.
I will do. Okay.